Now winter is on the way, so I've been out this morning scavenging a few pallets just to supplement the wood I get from other areas. And it struck me, can you make a bow drill from a pallet? I don't know whether it's the right wood or not. What concerns me about it possibly being the wrong wood is if you look at the areas where the knots are in some of these pallets, you see a lot of resin, so it bothers me that the wood might be a bit resinous, but there's only one way to find out. Now I'd like to do it using just one of these pallets, and apart from the resin in the wood, and that one there looks as though it's got a lot of resin in it, can I get a pallet with a bit of wood thick enough to make the spindle out of? I think I probably can. Anyway, despite the resin in this wood that I can see, there's areas where I can't see any. So I'm going to select this pallet and I'm going to see if I can make a bow drill out of it. So let's take it round the back and see what can be done. Right, so this is the pallet I've chose to use to make the bow drill out of. And just to refresh ourselves as to what we are attempting, or what constitutes a bow drill, I've got to make, this is my working bow drill set. So I've got to make out of that pallet a bow a half board, a spindle and a top bearing, and the bow turns the spindle on the half board and the bearing to make the friction to get the ember to start the fire. So these are the four components I'm going to have to make. The string, I'm not going to make that out of the pallet. We'll solve that problem when we get to it, but I've got to make the four main components minus the string. Tools I'm going to use: a small pry bar, a claw hammer, an axe, small axe, hatchet, hand axe, and a saw. And I will probably later on need a knife, and I may need, but I can't find it right now, my oil stone, because this is blunt and my knife will need sharpening once or twice through progress. So what I'm going to start doing now then is just taking this pallet, essentially I'm going to start with this piece of the pallet. So I just want to knock these nails, take these nails out and start with that piece of pallet there and see if we can't get a half board and a spindle out of it. Right, so we'll get the half board and the spindle out of that, I hope. Just put that there for now. Right, I want a spindle about at least that long. About that long. I can smell turpentine. I don't think that's a good sign for a bore drill. Right, spindle. That's our first project. Where's my axe gone? I can smell resin. Right, that's what I'm going to use for the spindle. That'll do for the half bore. I need a knife. I'm going to have to go and get a knife. Right, so I found my oil stone. I've got a knife, which will have to do. Which is probably sharp enough. Right, we're going to really want to save these shavings. Shaving nicely. It's out the way for the minute. So all I'm doing now is I'm trying to make a spindle as thick as I can get away with, as straight as possible. As I've already mentioned, I am worried that the wood is slightly resinous, but we'll find out. There's only one way to find out, isn't there? Through experience. You pick the wood shavings up for me, eh? I'd say that's pretty good. As long as it's fairly straight. So okay, so I'll stop thinking about that. That's a spindle. That's the spindle, not finished but sorted. Spindle, right. Half board, it's a little bit thick, but I think we can go with that. So, bearing block. Well, ideally I'd have something fairly hard for a bearing block so it didn't wear through. But this, I have to put the shavings in there, but it's soaking wet. Right, so for the bearing block then, I'm just going to cut another bit off of here. And in the time it takes to see whether it works or not, see whether we can get a fire going, we're not going to wear through it in one run, I don't think. So we'll just cut a bit off here. What are we going to do? I know what we'll do. That cut off there. One disadvantage about having loops on. Can you see the very centre of the wood? It's a much darker colour, and it really smells of turpentine. It's not a good sign, I don't think, but never mind, carry on. Right, so that'll be my bearing block there. Let's take these sharp corners off. Okay, I think that'll do as the bearing block, and then I just want a small indentation in it just to hold the top of the spindle. Wouldn't you know it, it's starting to rain. Never mind, we'll carry on. Right, so I don't want to go in too deep with this. And it'll get burned in the same as the notch on the half board. So we've got the makings of the bearing block. What we want now is bow. So I'm going to select one of the longer pieces where I can hopefully cut a and I'll get the bow hopefully out of that if I can get this off. If I can get that off. Let's give it a go.
It's not really accent with this. Okay, if we can get it to split off there. Fat wood. That knot there is fat wood.
Not perfect, but we might be able to get the bow out of that. Right, we don't need the bow this long. How long do we want the bow? Well, that's easy long enough. As long as my arm is easily long enough, I would say. Right, take this bit off then. We've got the makings of spindle, hearthboard, top bearing and bow. All from this bit of pallet in what, about 10 minutes? Now obviously I've got a little bit of refining to do, a little bit, not a lot. They're mostly on the spindle. That's not too bad. So, spindle's got two ends. The end that goes in the hearth board wants to be fat and very blunt nosed. So for that, all we want to do is really chamfer the edges off. Don't like the amount of resin that's showing there. That resin will lubricate it and generally muck things up, I think. And the other end wants to come to a much finer point. So I'll start a lot further back. It's like a fret, sea fret, fine rain. Just gets everything damp. A lot of dampness in the air. I'm just going to cut a notch in here. Right, I've just had the call for my tea, so as it's raining it's a good opportunity to take a break, put all this stuff in the dry and come back out to it. Well, when I've had my tea it's going to be dark, so come back out to it first thing in the morning. So I've just narrowed that round there, just narrowed it round. Just going to tie this in some sort of slip knot. I think what I've just tied is a Canadian jam knot, but I'm not sure. So I've just tied a Canadian jam knot in that end. And just for practice purposes, I don't need to tie anything in this end. Anyway, I've had the curl, so I better go, otherwise I'll be in trouble. So, was that my half board? I think that was my half board. Half board, top board, bow, spindle. Get everything out the rain, and we'll come back either after tea or first thing in the morning. Right, so I've had my tea, and to a degree we're working against time now because it's going to get dark very quickly. So we've got the bow, we've got the spindle. Next thing is to bed the spindle in, so burn it in. So we're just gonna make a divot in the half board, enough that it'll just keep the spindle in place. Right, and I'm also just going to take a leaf off of the potato and I'm going to scrunch that up in the top one just to get the juices on it, just to give it a bit of, just to reduce the friction a bit on the top bearing. Right. This is why it's handy having a slight bend in it, so it gets the spindle away from the bow touch. When this string's tight, a bit too tight now. Come on. There we go. Smoking at the top end, but not at the bottom end. There's too much resin in it. Alright, so we haven't burned it in, but let's not worry yet. Let's cut the notch in it. Right. I'm just opening out the bottom of the notch just to let a bit of air in there. Right, now we want to just browning a little bit, but I think there's too much resin in the wood. That's what I was afraid of, but let's not give up yet. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit of charcoal or grit or something in the bottom of there. That's just a bit of charcoal, damp charcoal, but it'll dry out eventually. Right, a bit more potato leaf, put a bit of spit in, I think. Right. Smoke from both ends. Okay, it's the right colour coming off. It's brown, nice brown. I'm just putting a glove on because I'm frightened this starts going through and then splits the whole lot. No, that smoke's no good. I need a rest. Right, so it would seem like your average pallet is not made out of the right wood to make board material. Either that or I'm just absolutely no good at it. So before we give up altogether, I picked up a bit of wood this morning. It looks like it's dry and it looks like it's elder from the elderberry tree. It's a bit small when you consider it's got a big pith running down the middle. But we might just be able to get a board drill, a spindle out of it, and a half. So let's just try one last effort with a bit of different wood and try this. Right, so that's the slightly wonky or slightly oval spindle, and now that's the pith in the middle, and I'm now just making the half board. Right, we'll see if we can burn that in. Right, same again, V. Just open it out a touch at the bottom. Right, let's see if we can salvage something out of it. Okay, we have an ember. I don't have a bundle to put it into. It's going to blow away in a minute. So that's with the elder that I picked up this morning. So I can start a fire with a bow drill, and I've never used elder before. Just see if we can get this into a flame.
Just not picking all this up off the wet grass. Charcoal up. nearly there. There we go. So, I hope you can see that. Right, you can see that, calling it a day.
So then, could we start a fire using a bore drill made from a pallet? No, I couldn't. Reason? Too much resin in the wood. A lot of resin, and actually you can feel the oiliness of the wood, the greasiness. You could smell it, turpentine. Is my technique rubbish? Probably. But I went out this morning and picked up this piece of elder, and that's what I've just used to make a bore drill. That was the spindle, and that was the hearth, and that was the result. With the original bore, straight bore, and the second bearing block I made out the pallet. So the bore worked, the bearing block worked, both the hearth and the bore and the spindles, and these are those. That's the first hearth and the first spindle there. I tried. Second hearth and second spindle, and I had to fall back on the piece of elder I picked up this morning. And I did put quite a bit of effort in. If I'm going to do it again, I'm too knackered to do it again now, but I'd try and select some better wood, and I'd try and reduce the friction in the bearing block, and I'd probably make a slightly thinner spindle. So we got there in the end, but not how I wanted to. But there was a lot of learning on the way. You can get fat wood from pallets. I suspected that. You can see the evidence of it all over. You've only got to look at the knots in the pallets, and there's dried resin around them. When you saw into them, you can smell the turpentine. And these, another giveaway, is these dark, very dark bands in between the lighter bands. There's none of that in the elder, none at all. So you might even be better off finding a piece of pallet with made out of hardwood rather than softwood. Without these, even this fairly light piece, you can still see dark strands in it. So I don't know, you know, some of you probably tried it more than I have and know the reasons. The reasons might be my technique. Might just be that it's a lot easier with a piece of elder than it is with pallet wood. Or there might be better pallet woods. Anyway, that's it. Failure, learning, so it's success if you stick at it. Learn why it didn't work. Keep going. Keep practicing. Keep learning. Right, that's it then. I'll be back in a week or so, because this has been a very tedious one. This is the second, well, it's only the end of the day, the second day, and it was only the end of the day, the first day. But it's still, I've still got to tidy up yet. Right. So I'll go in for me tea for a second time. I'm knackered.